All right, welcome to the explainer. For centuries, we've all wondered, can animals actually talk to us? Well, today, we're going to skip the simple yes or no. Instead, we're going to break down the science of what makes human language so special.
I mean, come on, we all do it, right? We talk to our dogs, our cats, and we're convinced they get every single word. But is that really a conversation? In the same way you and I can have one? Is it even possible for an animal to learn our language? Or is there something, I don't know, fundamentally different about how we humans communicate? Okay, let's dive right in. So to really get to the bottom of this, we need a game plan. First up, we're going to look at communication across the board. Then we'll actually build a scientific checklist to pin down what human language even is. After that, we'll see how apes stack up in some pretty famous experiments, we'll analyze the results, and then finally, we'll talk about what it all really means.
Okay, so first things first, animals absolutely 100% communicate. I mean, you've got bees that dance, birds that sing, monkeys with specific warning calls. The whole world is just buzzing with messages being sent and received. But to really dig into this scientifically, we have to make a super important distinction.
You see, scientists basically draw a line in the sand between two kinds of signals. On one side, you have what are called informative signals. These are totally unintentional. Think about it like this. Someone's accent might tell you where they're from, right? But they're not trying to send you that message. On the other side, you have communicative signals. These are totally intentional, like a bird letting out a specific chirp to warn everyone about a hawk. And for what we're talking about today, we're zeroing in on that second one, the intentional stuff.
And this really brings us to the heart of the matter, the big question for today. Is our language just a more complicated version of what other animals are doing? Or is there something truly unique about it? Something that puts it in a whole other league? So how do we answer that? Well, we need a tool. And luckily, linguists have given us one. They've identified 6 key properties that, when you look at them all together, really define what makes human language, well, human. Just think of it as our official scientific checklist.
All right, here it is, our checklist. The 6 core properties are reflexivity, displacement, arbitrariness, cultural transmission, productivity, and duality. Now, I know those might sound like some heavy words, but don't worry. Let's break down exactly what each one means, one by one.
Okay, first up, reflexivity. This is a really cool one. It's our ability to use language to talk about language. It's kind of meta, right? So when you say a word is hard to pronounce, or you point out that a sentence was really well written, you're using reflexivity. And get this, as far as we know, no other animal communication system on the planet can do that. Next on the list is displacement. And honestly, this one is a huge deal. It's our incredible ability to talk about stuff that isn't right here, right now. We can talk about what happened yesterday, what we're planning for next year, or even things that are happening on the other side of the world. And the difference here is just, it's night and day. We can sit here and talk about that amazing vacation we took last year. A cat, well, it only hisses when a dog is literally right there in its face. It has no way to hiss about a dog it might run into tomorrow.
Number 3 is arbitrariness. All this really means is that there's no logical reason why a word sounds the way it does. I mean, think about the word tree. The sounds T-R-E have absolutely nothing in common with an actual physical tree. It's just a random sound we've all agreed means that big leafy thing outside. Now that's really different from most animal signals. A cat arching its back to look bigger, that's not random at all. It's a direct signal of threat.
All right, property number 4 is cultural transmission. And this one's pretty easy to grasp. Just think about it for a second. You weren't born knowing how to speak English or Spanish or Japanese, right? You had to learn it. You had to be around people speaking it. So while we're all born with the ability to learn language, the specific language we speak is passed down to us by our culture. It's not in our genes.
Okay, number 5, productivity. You could also call it creativity. And this is where human language just gets wild. It's like having an infinite box of Legos. You can create and understand a limitless number of sentences that you've never, ever heard before. Now compare that to most animal communication, which has what's called fixed reference. That means one sound means one thing. A particular monkey call might mean eagle, and that's all it will ever mean. There's no mixing and matching. And finally, we have duality. This is like the secret weapon of our language. It's what makes it so efficient. Here's how it works. We have a small set of individual sounds like p, I, and t. By themselves, they're meaningless, just noises. But we can combine them in different ways to create a whole second layer of actual words that do have meaning, like pit or tip. This two-level system is incredibly economical and gives us this massive power to create from just a few dozen sounds. So, now we have our checklist. The big question is, how do our closest animal relatives, the great apes, stack up? Well, scientists have run some absolutely incredible experiments over the years to try and find out. Right off the bat, there's a big physical problem. Chimpanzees, for example, just don't have the right kind of vocal tract to make human speech sounds. It's a biological thing. So researchers had to get clever. They couldn't teach them to talk, so they turned to visual stuff, like sign language and symbols. And one of the first and most famous pioneers in this was a chimp named Washoe. Researchers taught her American Sign Language, and get this, over the years, she learned around 350 different signs. But what was really amazing is that she even started combining them in new, creative ways. She was seriously challenging everything we thought we knew. Then you had Sarah. Her team tried a totally different approach. They used a bunch of plastic shapes, where each shape stood for a word. And using a reward system, Sarah actually learned to arrange these shapes to form basic sentences. She could make complex requests, like putting the right symbols together to ask for an apple. And maybe the most mind-blowing case of all is Kanzi, a bonobo. He used a special keyboard with symbols on it called lexicograms. But here's the kicker. Nobody formally taught him. He just picked it up spontaneously by watching the researchers work with his mother, kind of like how a human toddler learns to talk. Okay, so these experiments are obviously fascinating, but what does it all mean when we go back to our 6-point checklist? How do they actually measure up? Let's dig into the findings. So let's do a quick recap. We've got Washoe, who showed real creativity with sign language. We've got Sarah, who proved she could handle sentence structure with her plastic shapes. And then there's Kanzi, whose spontaneous learning really looks a lot like our cultural transmission. And hey, they all clearly mastered using arbitrary symbols.
But, and this is a big but, here's what the science says. While these apes are without a doubt incredibly intelligent, their symbolic abilities are amazing, their skills just don't get to the level of an average human toddler. They never quite get that infinite productivity we talked about, or the ability to talk about language itself. So yeah, there's still a really big gap.
So where does that leave us? Well, it's a pretty interesting spot. We've seen that, yeah, human language really does seem to be unique, but we've also seen that animals are capable of so much more than we ever gave them credit for. So what does it all mean? And that brings us to our final and maybe most fascinating question. If what Washoe and Kanzi were doing doesn't tick all 6 boxes on our checklist, if it isn't language, then what in the world is it? These incredible experiments force us to look at our own definitions and maybe even question them. And they make us appreciate the unbelievably rich and complex world of communication that's happening all around us all the time. Definitely something to think about.